Hey, Dean here in the Secret Underground Lair. Welcome back. Today I'm working on a little revised version of this blade guide. I have ordered a blade that is 1 inch wide. This is a 3/4 inch blade. So I have a 1 inch blade. It's going to have a 1.3 teeth per inch. So it's a little more aggressive blade that I'm going to have on here. We'll give it a try. But what I'm concerned about is that this blade guide here has been designed for a 3/4 inch blade. And if I put the 1 inch blade on here, I'm a little concerned that the blade will stick out a little bit too far here and not be supported by the guides. So, by these guide blocks. So I want to be able to make this bearing here adjustable. So I can move it back and forth a little bit. Right now it's just welded on. It's a permanent position. So, an adjustable blade guide. That is today's adventure. The concept that I'm working on is, imagine this being the arm that supports the blade guide, and the blade blocks sit in here. Just kind of stack up vertically. And the bearing sits out here. I want that bearing to move back and forth, maybe controlled by a mechanism, something like this. A bolt on maybe put it on a barrel nut, or it could be a fixed nut. And as you turn that, that will push the bearing out and bring it back. I only need to have about 1/4 inch or so of movement there. Maybe even make it 1/2 inch of movement. So that's kind of the concept that I'm working with. So what I figure I will try first is make a little sleeve that fits over this bearing, the guide block arm, and then this adjustment will move that sleeve back and forth along the arm, and we'll have a nut and a bolt, kind of a grub screw there, that will clamp that guide block down onto the arm, or the sleeve onto the arm. I loosen off that clamp, then I can make the adjustment and then clamp it down again. So that's the concept that I'm working with. And to make that little sleeve, I'm going to take a piece of angle iron that I've got lying around. Guess what? Another piece of bed rail. So I'm just going to cut off some pieces here that I can weld together to make that little sleeve. So I'm just going to get some flat stock out of this angle iron. So I'm using my angle grinder, and we'll just go away and grind that stuff up into something usable. Alright, there's a couple bits that we should be able to use to make a sleeve. In fact, I'm hoping I should be able to get 2 sleeves out of that, but let's see what we do. Just going to go over to the belt sander, the benchtop belt sander, and clean this off. Get a nice shiny piece of metal out of this. That should be a piece suitable for welding. So now I'm going to cut these into 4 1-inch chunks, and then we can work on fabricating that little sleeve. Okay, I've marked these into 4-inch into 4 1-inch pieces. Just use the angle grinder and cut them off. Yeah, I could use a hacksaw to do that, but angle grinder is just so much faster. Okay, with our 4 little pieces here, some of which are toasty. Now work on making that little sleeve. So I've cut off a little piece of square stock. This is the same stuff that's used for the guide arm. And with our little pieces, I've actually cut off, I don't know if you can see that, but I cut off a little bevel on the edge there. And now I'm planning to clamp these guys, 2 of them onto there like that. I should be able to get a little better penetration with the welder along that edge. So the concept is these pieces are a little bit wider than the square stock, but once welded, I can grind it all down and make a nice square sleeve that'll slip right over there. The other thing too is I got to make sure I have a little bit of clearance. So once I get 2 of these sides welded, I'm going to put on 2 pieces of tape onto here, so that the when I glue up the other side or weld on the other side, hopefully the tape won't burn off with that, but that'll give me just enough clearance that this will slide nicely over this piece, or more specifically over the guide bar. So I'll set up the welding arrangement here on my sawmill, or on my work table, and we'll start welding these up. All right, got set up here for welding. I have a welding blanket here that's kind of covering up the rest of the sorry, the sawmill and some of the table. Yeah, so just going to tack this on here. See how we look. Of course, the challenge with any welding like this is the tendency of the piece to drift. And that is what happened there. It drifted a little bit, so as we weld this next piece on, I want to clamp this on pretty tightly. However, I did mention earlier that I want to keep have a little bit of space here so that this can slide. And in doing so, what I'm going to do is put on a little bit of tape here. So I'm going to put some tape on this side just to give us a little extra clearance. And it's not a lot, but I'm hoping that will be enough. We'll find out. It seemed to go okay. And I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on this side to give us a little more clearance again. Just going to go get rid of the excess tape here. I don't want to have anything excess on one side, so I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, we're back. Got it clamped in. We'll give this one a tack. if it comes out. Just might have welded this guy on here. I'm gonna go take this over to the vise, free it up, and I'll come back when that's done. So that came out really well. It slipped out. It was a snug fit, which is exactly what I wanted with the tape in there. We'll take the tape off and it'll slide nicely. So I'm now just going to tack up these, or finish welding up each of these welds here to get them where we need them. Okay, we should now be able to grind that off nice and square. We'll have a nice little sleeve. Back to the vise. Okay, back on the vise, and I'm just going to be grinding this edge here kind of flat. So I've got 4 edges that I want to cut off there. Okay, there's our piece all squared up, cleaned up a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit more cleaning. I want to get these edges a little better. So yeah, put it back in the grinder. We'll just kind of clean up this side. Well, it's looking a little better. Okay, I'm going to cool this off and see how it fits. Okay, it's got a piece cleaned up. I went over on the belt sander and just kind of took off the sharp corners on this piece. A little slider, and it almost fits in there. It's just a little bit snug. So I'm just going to use a file and do a little bit of filing on the inside of this just to open it up a little bit. Okay, that is making it through, but really stiff. So close but no cigar. Well, we're getting there. I'm kind of wondering if it might even be just the paint on here that's no problem. I'm going to go try this on a piece that has been sanded off. Let's see what it looks like. Once the paint comes off this, it goes really well. Just to prove a point, I'm going to take the paint off this and let's show you how it works. So with the paint just taken off that, it fits and slides in here beautifully. So that's just what I want. Now I can put a nut on here, weld a nut, drill a hole, weld a nut on top of it, and make that a clamping mechanism. And then we've got to figure out a little sliding mechanism to control how far up we go on the guide arm. Progress. So as this little sleeve evolves, I kind of did a little drawing of how I want it to work. Of course, this isn't quite right, but the fundamental principle is this is the sleeve that will slide back and forth across the block arm. And we'll put on a little fastener here that holds the bearing to keep it up against tight up against the back of the blade. And as you know, so the fundamental parts that we've got are going to be kind of like this. So here's our sleeve. Of course, the arm is going to slip through there. I won't do that one-handed. I'll weld a nut onto this sleeve. We're going to cut out that piece of metal here the bearing is sitting on, so make a diagonal cut. Put the other piece over here. We drill a hole through that so the bearing can be mounted. And the trick, of course, now is making sure I have clearance for the nut and the bolt to go through here so it can be tightened up against the arm. So that's kind of where we are. I just got a phone call that the new blade is in, so I'm going to go pick that up, and then I'll know exactly how this bearing can be, where I need to put that in relation to our sleeve and arm. So prudent and to go pick up that blade about now, and probably the timing couldn't be better. Really happy with the turnaround on that too, by the way. Just ordered it 2 days ago and it's already in. So I'll come back when I have the blade. All right, we have our new blade for the Worktable Sawmill. This is a 1-inch blade, 1.3 teeth per inch. So that's a little bit more aggressive than what we have been using, which I thought this was a very aggressive blade. This is going to be a little different. So let's continue on now with making the little guide, or the bearing block for the blade guide. So next step is going to be taking this little piece and cutting that on a diagonal. Then I'm going to weld the pieces together, drill a hole, and get it all the same shape. Just going to run that through the little belt sander just to get rid of that outside edge. And that guy stays. So here's our two pieces. The intention, of course, is that the bearing is going to sit in there between those two guys. All right, I have just tack welded these guys together, put it in 3 points, then just sanded off that weld on the surface here so that I can have it sitting flat on the drill press. I marked the hole marked the spot where I want the hole to be, put a little center punch in there, and now we're going to go to the drill press and drill that hole out. Okay, we're all set up on the drill press. I'm going to use 4 bits to go through this, just working up to our final 3/8. Okay, now we'll just do a little bit of grinding, make sure the one edge is all flush, and then we can break off these welds. We're close, but not quite a cigar. Just give it a little persuasion here. There we go. Just a little tap. So now we can mount our bearing in there, knowing that we've got it, the hole positioned exactly the same distance from this edge. This edge is what's going to be attached to our little spacer. So this is the existing blade guide. I've taken out the block here from the top, but this kind of, if the blade is here, this kind of comes up to the blade, and this is where the fixed bearing now rests against the blade as the blade travels through like so. This line represents the bracket that is holding this guide in this orientation, and we clamp that. It gets clamped in here. So I have to keep this little slider that we've got on this side of that line. So I don't have a lot of room here to really play around. However, what is clear is I'm gonna take this off. So I'm gonna break that weld, clean this surface up. And a test fit, reasonably good. I think that's going to work. We are well away from our half-inch mark, so we have at least that much clearance that we can move. I think that'll be good. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to deepen out this groove a little bit here so the blade can sit back a little bit farther for a 1-inch blade. All right, the time has come here to a little bit of welding. So I'm going to tack this piece here onto this, and that is going to give us enough travel so that the bearing at its farthest point forward would take a blade a little bit, even less than half an inch, and then I can bring it back all the way past the bottom of that groove that we've cut, which is easily going to accommodate the 1-inch blade. All right, and there is our slider mechanism. We can see the line where the holder will grab this bar, but we can now slide this right up, and that bearing you can see comes way up, almost halfway up our slot, and I can slide it back to behind the slot. So we have lots of room for varying size bandsaw blades. So a bolt will come out. Oh, I can get that on camera. Okay. So I want to weld that bolt on. I want to weld this bolt onto here, and then we can turn the nut to position this exactly where we want it to be. So there'll be a capture nut on each side and a little flange welded onto this that will let us move this back and forth accurately and precisely, and then when it's in place, we can clamp that on tight. So I have cut out a little piece here that will take a 1/4-inch bolt that is going to, and this little piece will now be attached onto our slide, and that lets the 1/4-inch bolt go through that hole and tension it up and down the guide bar. So I'm just going to go tack this on with the welder. I'll be right back. So I have our little tab welded on here. Put the bolt in so you can kind of see how that works. Next step is I'm going to weld that bolt onto here, and then we can make these adjustments by loosening one of those bolts. This can slide up tight. So I'll just tack that onto this piece, and we'll get our adjustment put in place. Okay, so there is our bolt welded onto this part of the guide block. So our slider can now move back and forth with the adjustment of this bolt and double nut. So I can bring this nut forward, bring the slider all the way forward and then tighten that nut up against this, and we're in the right position. So that allows this bearing to move back and forth quite a bit in relationship to this guide block. So I'm very happy with that result. A little lick of paint I think would make it look a lot better. So I'll probably do that. I'll probably put a little bit of paint on it and then put it back in the Worktable sawmill. Now I have to do another one for the other side. So I'll do that off camera and come back when we're all done. And there we have it, some adjustable blade guides. So I can adjust for a blade. I can adjust the guides in and out, obviously. I can adjust them up and down. I can adjust them in and out. I can adjust these blocks, each block individually up and down, so that I am guiding the blade properly. And now with the bearing, I can provide support on the back and adjust that. I've got a good 3/8 of an inch left on that blade. If I'm running a smaller blade, I can bring it a little farther forward. So yeah, very happy with that. I've got the other one done as well. I didn't paint it. Functionally, it's set up the same way. I'm going to have to reconfigure my arts and crafts a little bit to accommodate that new adjustable blade guide. But overall, very happy with that result. I'll probably give this a test run with the current blade, and then we'll put on the 1-inch blade and see what difference that makes. Also note, I have enlarged this gap back here so I can take in a larger blade now. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.